And welcome to Escape with Watch Reviews. My name is Steve, and today we're going to be reviewing the Pagani Design PD1703 Pilot's Chronograph. So I received this watch for free from the Pagani Design Global AliExpress store. I don't have to send the watch back, but you know the deal by now. That's not going to sway my review one way or the other. The current retail price for this watch is about $120 US, but it's almost always on a sale, so keep that in mind when purchasing. Currently, I see it for about $10 off of that. So yeah, just keep that in mind when you're about to purchase. The watch is currently available in a few different colorways and strap combinations, which you can see here. They've got gold cases and silver cases and black dials and blue dials and this kind of teal lume and white lume. So go check out the store. They got lots of combinations for you to check out. This watch case is made of 316L stainless steel. It has a sapphire crystal, a screw down crown, screw down case back, 100 meters of claimed water resistance. It comes on your choice of straps, and they're all powered by the Seiko VK67 Mecha Quartz movement. So I've had this watch on wrist and in possession for a few days now, and it has its positives and negatives just like any other watch. And we're going to cover those in this review. So I say we get right to it. And before we do a quick wrist check for the day. Got the escapement time chronograph. And yeah, really like this watch. Go check out the review for that. Alright, so let's get the dimensions out of the way. We got a case diameter of 42.5 millimeters, thickness of 12.4 millimeters, 20 millimeter lug width, lug tip to lug tip of 50.6 millimeters, and on the supplied strap, it weighs about 73.5 grams. So I think the size is pretty good. It does have some nice curvature to the lugs, as you can see right there. That helps with the wearability of this thing. You know, almost 51 millimeters lug tip to lug tip. It's on the big side. Definitely my upper limits for what I prefer. But this is a pilot watch. They're supposed to be big. They're supposed to be bold. And yeah, this one actually wears pretty good for its size, in my opinion. It's a big dial as well. So it just appears really big on the wrist. I'm glad they went with 20 millimeter lugs. I think that looks really good. And I'm very happy with it. So I'm going to go outside right now and throw it on my wrist for you. And here we are on my 7.5 inch wrist, and as you can see, I can pull it off. About the upper limits of what I like to wear, but this one actually wears pretty decent. It's got some good curvature on the lugs there, so it hugs my wrist really nicely. And yeah, I think it looks good. I got no major complaints with it. Got some light play off of that bezel, and definitely off of the crystal. You can see lots and lots of distortion there. We'll talk about the crystal in a little bit. But that does pose just a little bit of an issue on this model, but not terrible, not as bad as some of the models. So yeah, that's what this one looks like. I think it looks all right though. Looks pretty good. And popping out in some direct sunlight here. Here you can see it gets a little bit washed out, but it's still pretty legible in my opinion. You do have some blue AR on that crystal, which we'll talk about, and I think overall though, I think it looks pretty good. It works. It's a pilot watch. They're supposed to be big, and I think this one pulls it off. I do like it. I think it looks good, and it also is pretty comfortable on the strap. You can see I'm right in the middle there for my 7.5 inch wrist, and yeah, I think it looks good. What do you guys think? Now let's go throw this on some straps, and we'll get back to it. Yeah, here we are on a 2-stitch leather strap in black. Link for this one is down below, and I think that looks pretty good. I kind of figured it would, and yeah, no surprises. Looks really good. What do you guys think? And here we are on a Straps Co. strap. I think that looks pretty good. What do you guys think about that one? Not my favorite, but I don't think it looks bad at all. And here we are on a Riche kind of olive drab two-piece strap. Really nice color, and I do like this black dial with this strap. I think it always looks pretty good. What do you guys think about that? And here we are on an elastic kind of parachute style strap, brown with a white tan or a white stitch in the middle. I think it looks okay. It is very comfortable, obviously, but yeah, I'm not going to link these ones because I don't like these straps, but that just gives you an idea of what it would look like. I think it looks pretty good. And here we are on a 2-stripe gray and black nylon strap with 2 layers underneath the watch there. Still wears pretty good. This is the one that came in the box, or at least one very similar to the one that came in the box, so it does have the Pagani branding on it, and I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to mention right now, any of these straps that I put on, they were a pretty tight fit. Those spring bars are pretty close to the case, so I was able to fit it in, but just barely. So just keep that in mind. If you have a thicker strap, it might not fit on this thing. But otherwise, I think these all look pretty good on it. It's a neutral colorway on the watch, so I kind of figured that would be the case. So yeah, I say we go back inside and let's get back to this review. Okay, so let's talk about the case finishing. And the case finishing on this is actually one of the highlights of the watch. It's really nicely done, in my opinion. You have a circular brushing on the tops of the lugs there, as you can see. You've got a polished bezel. That top edge is polished, and then you've got a brushing on the bottom half of the bezel. I think it looks really good. Very nicely done. I see no issues with that. I see no issues with the brushing on the top. It's pretty nicely done for what this is. The case transitions are nice and crisp. It's not soft anywhere, and I think it looks really nice. You got horizontal brushing on the sides of the case here, and again, really nicely done. This is the second Pagani in a row that I've been pretty impressed with the case finishing on. So hopefully this is a step in the right direction for the brand. They're getting good. They're getting really good. So on the crown side here, you can see you've got two pushers, little circular pattern on the pushers themselves. I guess the outer edge of the pushers are polished. Nicely sized pushers, in my opinion. They feel nice. We'll talk about those when we talk about the movement a little bit. Good sized crown as well, signed with the Pagani logo. Just your typical crown, but I think they all look pretty good. I think the case finishing in general looks pretty good. Even the brushing between the lugs is nicely done. Flipping it over to the case back here, you can see right at the top here, you have diver 100 meters. This is not a dive watch, so I don't know why they felt the need to put that on there with a fish. I don't get it, but I do like the plain logo. I think that looks really nice. It's just your typical Pagani Design case back though. Otherwise, circular brushing and polishing on the outside, simple notches to get a tool in there. Bottom of the lugs are, again, looks like they're circular brushed, and all these edges here, they're not sharp or anything like that. It's never been an uncomfortable case for me. I think the case back looks pretty good. That diver 100 meters there, I don't get that, but otherwise, pretty happy with the case back and the case in general. All right, so let's talk about the crystal on this. So we'll test it for sapphire first. You can see it is positive for sapphire. It's an okay crystal. It's not my favorite. Again, this is a single dome crystal. So the top surface of this watch crystal is domed. The bottom surface is flat. And that's what gives you that nice distortion, as you can see there. It's also a magnifying crystal, so it makes the dial look a little bit bigger, and the rehaut looks a little bit shallower. So yeah, they do have their advantages, but you kind of get this double reflection, which you can see really good right there. You've got a kind of a thinner white line there, and then you've got the blue AR coating that's on the underside. And I mean, it just makes for a very reflective crystal. I'm glad that they put on some blue AR. It's a little bit distracting from time to time, but it's not horrible. Just because I think the dial is, nice and contrasty. I can still read the time, so it's not a big issue, but it's definitely not my favorite type of crystal. It does give really cool distortions though, which I know some people love. But yeah, I do think overall the crystal is, it's okay. It's definitely not my favorite, but I wouldn't really consider it a negative to the watch. All right, so let's talk about the dial. And I'm going to start the chronograph here because we're going to talk about this in just a moment. And one of my main issues with this watch. So the dial on this is really nicely done. It's a matte black dial with crisp white printing for all the hour markers, all the indices, the minute track, all very nicely done. It's a super legible dial. Really happy with the legibility of this thing. I mean, it's a pilot watch. That's all it's about, is legibility. So the fact that they stuck really bright, crisp white, dial markers on this thing makes me happy. You've got your Pagani Design applied shield there, which is your only applied aspect on the dial. Kind of an odd choice. I wish they would have just printed that on there. It doesn't look bad, but it does sometimes get lost in the light, as you can see right here. And then you got your Pagani Design text, Japan movement down here at the 6 o'clock position. Everything is done pretty good. The subdials on this, so you have a running second subdial down here, as you can see there, just ticking along. And then over here at the 9 o'clock position, you've got a 12-hour elapsed time for your chronograph, which is really nice to have. That's something that most chronographs in this price range are missing. So I'm happy that they're using this movement. This is my first time with this movement. The odd thing about this is that we are on we're approaching the second minute of this chronograph timing, right? Well, get up here to the 12 o'clock subdial, and we're at the 1 minute mark, right? Yeah, that is supposed to be a 60-minute timer, not a 30-minute like it's marked. So, yeah, that's a pretty big flaw with this watch. That should be a 60-minute subdial there at the 12 o'clock position, not a 30-minute. So if you are buying this and you're using this for timing, you're going to have to double your minutes, basically. So, yeah, kind of a big issue with this watch. If functionality, looks wise, it looks fine, right? You're almost never going to notice it. But if you're actually using this to time things, you're going to have to do a little math because that is completely wrong. I'm not really sure how that got past Pagani Design Quality Control, but yeah, it is what it is. Otherwise, I think the dial is pretty nicely done. You've got those concentric circles on the subdials, which kind of gives them a little sunburst effect. I think they look really good. They're silver subdials against the black. They stand out. The printing is done nicely, in my opinion, although it's wrong in that 12 o'clock subdial. But otherwise, really nicely done. The handset on this, you can actually see all the subdials are loomed. The handset is loomed, which is a nice touch. The main handset here, really nicely sized. They reach right out to the minute track. Divided here in the middle. It's kind of a love-hate thing. I do kind of like it. It makes it a little bit more interesting. You got a really nice arrowhead on the tip of the second hand there, it's sweeping along nicely. Overall, I'm pretty happy with it. The handset is a matte black, so that does kind of blend into the dial, but you have so much lume on those hands that it really isn't an issue reading this dial. And speaking of the lume, I'm going to pop up a lume shot right now, and here you can see it against a couple other chronographs in the collection. The lume glows green, and it is pretty evenly applied. That being said, it all fades at the same time. It doesn't stick around for very long. Yeah, it's just not good lume at all. I know that's a sticking point for a lot of people with Pagani Design watches. They need to upgrade their lume. I think they're working on that. This definitely is not one of their better watches, so just keep that in mind. But yeah, the lume is there, and yeah, that's... All right, so let's talk about the movement. So it is the Seiko VK67 Mecha Quartz movement. If you're unfamiliar with these movements, they're really nice. 3 years of battery life, plus or minus 20 seconds a month. Yeah, they're nice movements. I've had no issues with them. This is the first time I've had a VK67. So we have these 12-hour subdial over here, a 60-minute counter up here, which is obviously mislabeled. And yeah, otherwise it is the same Mecha Quartz as we know and we love. 5 ticks per second of the chronograph here. Really nice feedback to these pushers. Really nice snapback here. You can see this one is just a little off. Definitely misaligned a little bit there. Hasn't bothered me too much, but definitely isn't misaligned when you really get close to it. And that's not something you can adjust with the pushers. That's something you actually have to go in and reset that chronograph secondhand. So just keep that in mind. You're leaving your fate up to the Pagani Design Quality Control team. But yeah, I think overall the movement is pretty good. The screw down crown here, it's nice and smooth. I got no issues with that. I think the size is nice as well. Nice and grippy. The first position here does nothing. Second position changes a date window behind the dial. You can hear it ticking around back there. Third position, it does hack the movement there. And then this is where you can set your time. Nice solid feedback. It's feels pretty light on this, so maybe it's just a gasket issue in the crown or something like that. But I've got no issues setting the time on this thing. The hands don't jump or anything like that. So overall, I am pretty happy with the movement. I always have been with the Seiko VK series and the VH series. They're nice movements. I got no issues with them. All right, so let's talk about this strap. So this is a strap provided with this particular one. They do sell it on a couple different styles of straps, so just be aware. It is 20 millimeters. It tapers down to 18 millimeters at the buckle. Pretty nicely done, though. I'm actually fairly happy with it. The stitching, it's not great, but it's comfortable. And I think it actually looks really cool. So you kind of got this, it's almost like a nylon top. It's kind of like a sailcloth material on the top. Leather on the bottom here. It does say genuine leather. It does have your 20 millimeter stitched in there, or stamped in there. Pagani Design over here. You've got one floating keeper. You've got one stationary keeper. You kind of have this abrupt taper. It's not a smooth taper down. So that's kind of that pilot style. It gives it a little bit more presence on wrist, but nicely done, I think. The buckle on this thing, I've seen it used in plenty of other watches as well. This one is nicely signed with the Pagani Design logo there. I'm happy with the buckle. Yeah, it's fine. It's nothing fancy, but it's not flopping around or anything like that. Overall, pretty happy with it. The strap itself, pretty stiff out of the box, but it has really softened up nicely. You can see it already kind of conforms when you just leave it like that. So the strap, surprisingly, I've only worn it for, I don't know, maybe 24 hours total. And it is pretty comfortable on it, surprisingly. So yeah, pretty happy with the strap. I will say, when you bend the strap, why you would do this, I'm not sure, but when you bend the strap this way, it does kind of crinkle up and leave some marks there. So yeah, just don't bend it that way. I don't know why I did that, but yeah, I do think the strap looks pretty good, even though the stitching isn't the best, isn't the cleanest. One major issue I have, not issue, but complaint I have, is no quick release. They just need to put quick release. I can't imagine it costs that much to do. I would appreciate it. I know everyone else would appreciate it. And then I'd be able to use this strap on some other watches because it is good enough where I'd want to keep it in the collection. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the strap. So there you go, guys. That is the Pagani Design PD1703. It's a newer pilot chronograph. I think it looks pretty good. If you are into these bigger watches and you want a pilot's chronograph, this is not a bad option. You're going to be able to get this thing for pretty cheap during some of the big sales. And, you know, maybe, hopefully, they will correct that sub-dial up there. That is my main issue with this watch. Otherwise, I think it's pretty good. You got a nice crystal, good movement, strap is decent. Case finishing is actually pretty good on this model. You got 100 meters of water resistance. It is, you know, like pretty much a fully loomed dial there. All the markings are loomed. Even the sub-dial hands are loomed. So that's pretty cool, even though the loom isn't great. It's nice that they did that. So, yeah, pretty good offering from Pagani Design. Just one major design, or I'm not even going to call it a quality control issue. That's a design issue. But yeah, that sub-dial needs to be reprinted for sure. Other than that, though, I think it's a pretty good watch. So if they do update this to a version 2, I see no reasons not to get it. Yeah, it's a good watch. So let me know what you guys think about it. I think that's about it for me. Thanks a lot for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.